Number, if you'd like to be a part of the program, is 877-97-ERIC, 877-973-7425. Glad to have you with me this morning, by the way, and I want to, if I can, deviate a bit from the strict headlines, if you will. I'm sorry. I'm trying to. I forgot to push some buttons and flip some switches as we launched the program this morning. I was texting a friend of mine. All right, now I can focus. I want to read you 3 different pieces, and just bear with me in these. There are some news stories out. I guess you could say columns, opinion pieces that they're in the background conversation, if you will, and I want to bring them forward. What happens oftentimes is the opinion leaders, if you will, in Washington and New York and the conservative movement, the editorialists, they're talking about things behind the scenes, and they're not really telling you what's going on, but their responses to those things are shaping the way they then talk about the conversation. And I just think in the interest of candor and fairness and disclosure, I should bring you behind the curtain and let you listen to some of these. And it starts with this piece by Glenn Elmers at the American Mind at the Claremont Institute. And the headline is "Conservatism is no longer enough." And it shows a muscular guy wrapping his hands as if he's about to get into a boxing match. Let me just read you parts of this. Let's be blunt. Many of you, by the way, are going to agree with this. Let's be blunt. The United States has become 2 nations occupying the same country. When pressed or in private, many would now agree. Fewer are willing to take the next step and accept that most people living in the United States today, certainly more than half, are not Americans in any meaningful sense of the term. I don't just mean the millions of illegal immigrants. Obviously, those foreigners who have bypassed the regular process for entering our country and probably will never assimilate to our language and culture are, politically as well as legally, aliens. I'm really referring to the many native-born people, some of whose families have been here since the Mayflower, who may technically be citizens of the United States, but are no longer, if they ever were, Americans. They do not believe in, live by, or even like the principles, traditions, and ideals that until recently defined America as a nation and as a people. It is not obvious what we should call these citizen aliens, these non-American Americans, but they are something else. What about those who do consider themselves Americans? By and large, I'm referring to the 75 million people who voted in the last election against the senile figurehead of a party that stands for mob violence, ruthless censorship, and racial grievances, not to mention bureaucratic despotism. Regardless of Trump's obvious flaws, preferring his reelection was not a difficult choice for these voters. In fact, leaving aside the Republican never-Trumpers and some squeamish centrists, it was not a difficult choice for either side. Both right and left know where they stand today, and it is not together, not anymore. Those who wanted to make America great again may refer to themselves as Republicans, though many realize that, apart from Trump, the party does not really care about them. Many may also, in some loose ways, consider themselves conservatives, but among those plumbers, insurance salesmen, gym owners, and factory workers, there's one question you can pretty much guarantee they never discuss with their family and friends. What kind of conservative are you? This question has virtually no bearing on the problems that overshadow their lives. It is still a question, however, that occupies intellectuals, journalists, and the world of think tanks. And this matters, unfortunately, because however sensible and down-to-earth the voters may be, an effective political movement needs intellectual leadership to organize and explain the movement's purposes and goals. This leadership is still divided into, to name a few, neocon, paleocon, not to be confused with paleo-libertarians, rad trads, that's radical traditionalists, the dissident right, reformicons, etc. A lot of these labels are a distraction, but before I reject these disputes as mostly irrelevant, let me make a couple of points about why we can't immediately leave the debate behind. Now, I'm actually going to skip over some of that and I'm going to get to this. The great majority of establishment conservatives who are alarmed and repelled by Trump's rough manner and disregard for norms are almost totally clueless about a basic fact. Our norms are now hopelessly corrupt and need to be destroyed. It has been like this for a while, and the MAGA voters knew it, while most of the policy wonks and magazine scribblers did not and still don't. In almost every case, the political practices, institutions, and even rhetoric governing the United States have become hostile to both liberty and virtue. On top of that, the mainline churches, universities, popular culture, and the corporate world are rotten to the core. What exactly are we trying to conserve? That was Glenn Elmers of the Claremont Institute. Now, let me read you this from Dan Dresner in the Washington Post. He's writing in response to the Elmers piece. By conventional metrics, conservatives are down but not out in American politics. After a 2020 election that many predicted would be a Democratic blowout, Republicans still control a majority of governorships and actually increase their control of state legislatures. Things look worse for the GOP at the national level, but far less hopeless. Democrats hold bare majorities in both the House and Senate. If the midterms follow past pattern, it would not be surprising if the GOP controls at least one chamber in 2023. This observation seems somewhat disconnected from conservative rhetoric, however. On Fox News, it is the end times. Jesse Kelly and Tucker Carlson agree that the right will soon embrace fascism because they have no other choice. Rachel Campos Duffy argues that Michelle Obama was the secret agent of woke culture to take over the U.S. military. And then there's the Claremont conservatives like Glenn Elmers, who wrote this super chill essay about the state of America, which opens as follows. Let's be blunt, blah, 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 blah. I read it. During the Trump era, the standard lament was that liberals cared about power in the political realm, but did not have it, whereas conservatives cared about power in the cultural realm, but did not have it. And let's be clear, conservatives have lost influence in the cultural realm. Academia has moved to the left, so has the media. The standard counter to this charge for those of us residing in these institutions is that these are professions. Codes of conduct constrain how much one's political preferences affect one's intellectual output. These codes are not perfect. Conservative critiques of cancel culture are not without foundation. Still, they've been exaggerated. The trouble for conservatives is that reliably conservative institutions have begun acting in a less conservative manner. Polling during the Trump years suggested the military was moving away from the GOP. Since President Biden was inaugurated, conservatives have been banging on about the woke military because the defense secretary is committed to combating political extremism, and general officers are pushing back on Tucker Carlson's harangues about women in the military. Meanwhile, conservatives feel besieged by big business as well. Put yourself in the position of a Claremont conservative. Right-wingers have lost influence over liberal elite institutions. Heretofore, conservative institutions are becoming more hostile as well. The last remaining holdout might be religion, but that trend line is discouraging for faith-based conservatives. Democrats will retain control of the House, Senate, and executive branch until 2023 the earliest. Compared with 4 years ago, populist conservatives exercise much less power and influence. The country seems to be turning against them. Conservatives are not crazy to feel like they're facing existential threats. They start to sound crazy in failing to recognize their own culpability in the situation they find themselves in. That's Article 2. Now, bear with me. Last one here. This is from Rod Dreher in The American Conservative. Headline, Woke Capitalism and Decadent Republicans. Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson proving once again that many Republican politicians are as useless as teats on a boar when it comes to defending anything culturally conservative or sane, vetoed a sensible law that would have prevented body-changing surgeries or hormones for minors suffering from gender dysphoria. Back in 2015, after woke capitalism came down hard on the state of Indiana over its state version of the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, forcing its repeal, the same Governor Hutchinson saw to it that the Arkansas version of the same was strangled in the crib. Walmart, which is super woke, cleared its throat, and Governor Hutchinson did its bidding. I wrote the Benedict option because I believe we are in revolutionary times and are in fact living through the collapse of our culture and civilization, and that faithful Christians needed to figure out how to survive intact. A friend this morning texted to say his nominally conservative religious institution had suddenly gone woke. He sent this quote from Jacques Barzun's celebrated 2001 doorstopper, From Dawn to Decadence. The system was rotten. This had been said over and over, yet the old Hulk was immovable. When people accept futility and the absurd as normal, the culture is decadent. The term is not a slur, it is a technical label. A decadent culture offers opportunities chiefly to the satirist. And on it goes. Now, I've been thinking a lot about this, and I've been thinking about it to some degree in light of my conversation with Tim Keller and really his book, Hope in Times of Fear. You've got Glenn Elmers at the Claremont Institute, an intellectual think tank for conservatism that has gone towards reactionary conservative populism, that what is there left to conserve? There's nothing left to conserve. He even goes on, for example, to attack the Constitution. The U.S. Constitution no longer works, but that fact raises more questions than answers. Lots of groups today will tell you what's wrong with society in light of their particular theory or doctrine. When I say that MAGA voters are Claremont conservatives and that this transcends any faction, I'm referring to the idea the United States was the first nation in history of the world explicitly founded on the idea that government derives all of its legitimacy from inalienable rights. America's reconception of democracy differed from what the world had usually meant up to this point. The rule of the majority in America would be limited in principle. And on it goes. You've got the responses to it from people like Dan Dresner. You've got the lament of the collapse of a decadent culture from Rod Dreher. This gets me back to the idea of hope. And I finally now, having read all these pieces and the responses to the pieces, and I share some of Greg Elmer's concerns. What I would note about a vast array of conservative voices in Washington, particularly the ones that were so easily persuaded that Donald Trump is terrible and there's no redeeming virtue now in the Republican Party. The people who could most easily do that are the ones who have no religious foundation and have no affinity for the culture of life. It's really easy for people to say, I'm going to vote Democrat because screw Donald Trump, when you don't think killing kids is a bad thing. And it's really easy to cast aspersions on people like Glenn Elmers and others for lamenting what they see as a collapse of culture when you actually are okay with a lot of what's going on. You may not like the wokes. You may not like the rapid censorship of cancel culture. But, you know, transgenderism, not a big deal for you. The fact that people are looking at Bruce Jenner and saying, well, you better call him Caitlyn or else. He did legally change his name, so I guess we should. But that we're supposed to accept he is a she. Even my child last night was lamenting that there's a kid that she knows who she now wants to have a gender neutral name and be referred to as they. And my kid's like, it's just easier to go along with it when I'm in front of them because otherwise they have this meltdown. And a lot of you at the end of the day, I think you're just tired of the meltdown. You can't say what you want to say. And of course, the left response, well, you just want to say racist things. Like, what the hell is in the water? And I've got a thought on this. And it's this. Hope. When Tim Keller and I were talking the other day, he pointed out that most people, when they use the word hope, they're talking about wishful thinking. I hope I can combine my two radio shows and get back to just one 3-hour national show. I hope that I can get a new car. I hope that I'll have the money to put a new roof on the house. I hope that my kids will do well in school. It's a wish. I wish that this will happen. What hope actually is, the word we use is better translated in the Bible, for example, the hope of the resurrection, the hope of the cross, the hope of our Savior, is the profound certainty. There's not a lot of profound certainty right now on the right, other than that the left is bad. So what we see is on the left. That becomes the mission of the right is, let's own the left. The left is bad. We are profoundly certain that the left is bad. So let's own them. The problem with that, though, is that, and I think this is where Glenn Elmers misses things. I think to some degree this is where Dan Dresner in his response misses things, where Rod Dreher misses things. That my hope is in the American people. And if you've lost the American people, then you've lost the culture. And no amount of getting it back, no embrace of fascism to say we're not going to have election again, we're going to put our guys in and that's it, we're done, and you can't have the levers of power back because we think you're going to do the same to us. There's a profound wisdom in the average American citizen who isn't on social media, who isn't yelling at the TV all the time. They're not watching Fox News. They're raising their family. They're loving their life. They're navigating through. And we have lost the profound certainty in the goodness of the American people on both sides, I think, on both sides. But we've also lost the profound certainty that conservatism is a winning message. And you see that on the right. And you see that because, I think Roger gets to this, conservatives have felt sold out by their leaders. That I've had conservative pro-life activists tell me they would rather talk to Democrats about abortion rights because at least they know they're dealing with someone who honestly doesn't agree with them, as opposed to a lot of Republican members of Congress who will pat them on the head and then keep funding Planned Parenthood. We've lost the profound certainty that our leaders in our party really agree with us. And we knew that Donald Trump, though we may not agree with him on everything, knew he would certainly own the left because he knew they were bad because they weren't with him. Anyone who's not with him is against him. He's attacking the conservative governor of Georgia because he thinks the conservative governor of Georgia could have done things he couldn't do to stop the election in November from going to Joe Biden. There's a profound certainty that the left is bad and no profound certainty in our ideas anymore. And so no one wants to even have the talk about ideas. No one wants to have a talk about what could we do to bring people to us. It's just we got to fight. We got to fight. The Constitution's bad. The Constitution's broken. Society is broken. We got to fight. We got to fight. You know, you can't fight in the way you want to fight. If the institutions are aligned against you, they will stop you. And the way to get the institutions back is to rediscover your profound certainty in the goodness of the American people as a society. And all you have to do is look at the fact that in November, yeah, the left went with Biden and the right, for the most part, went with Trump. But a great many people went with Joe Biden and then voted Republican down ballot because they don't want the drama. They don't want the fight. They don't want the nastiness. They want some hopeful vision of America. And they didn't think they could get it with Trump or with the woke Democrats. That tells me that the Republicans have a winning message, luring Black and Hispanic voters over to their side and the like. There's a winning message there. If we will just re-embrace the hope of good ideas, the profound certainty of good ideas, we can even bypass the media. We see it happening on a daily basis. We've got to get back to that and get away from this idea that we just have to fight because the system is corrupted against us and it's all come tumbling down. No, rediscover your hope in America.
Honest news and conservative views.
Never separated from
Hello there, it is Erick Erickson here. The phone number is 877-97-ERIC, 877-973-7425. Wow, look at the clock. I went long that last segment. I need to tell you about Omaha Steaks. Y'all, I'm excited for Omaha Steaks' new package that they've just come out with. If you go to omahasteaks.com, when the site loads, you'll see up at the top a banner, a search bar right next to the logo. You put in the word Georgia, and you'll see my name come up. When you do that, you'll go to the Let's Go Grill assortment. The Let's Go Grill assortment. You're going to save 48%, according to the website. At this very moment, you're going to save definitely over 45%. Here, though, here is the genius of this. The weather is turning good. It's warming up. Everything's in bloom. And Omaha Steaks is going to give you almost 4 pounds of burgers for free. That's 12 Omaha Steak burgers for free with the Let's Go Grill package. But you're also going to get fillets, you're going to get pork chops, you're going to get chicken breasts, you're going to get sausages, you're going to get dessert, you're going to get a side, you're going to get 12 burgers for free. What you do is you go to omahasteaks.com and you put Georgia in the search bar at the top, and you'll get 12 burgers for free. These aren't just your average ground chuck burgers either. These are juicy, delicious Omaha Steak burgers. Go to omahasteaks.com, put Georgia in the search bar today. Hello there, it is Erick Erickson here. The phone number is 877-97-ERIC, 877-973-7425. If you're just tuning in, let me reset a little bit. There are a bunch of articles out right now that are really focused on one other article, and it is an article at the Claremont Institute by Glenn Elmers, who basically says conservatism is no longer enough. We haven't really conserved anything. And there's nothing useful. It's time for a counter-revolution. Learn some useful skills, stay healthy, get strong, read some books. And it's really a lack of hope. There's an element within conservatism that came to the foreground with the Flight 93 election stuff, also from Claremont in 2016. And now a piece by Glenn Elmers that essentially conservatism has conserved nothing, and it's time to fight. That we've got to hold on. Now, the dangers here, and let me just play this out as people on the other side see it. And frankly, this is, to some degree, I can see why they see it, is when you say conservatism has conserved nothing, and it's time to fight, you eventually do get to where the left has been saying you were going, even if you never meant to get there, which is you get to someone who grabs power and never lets it go. Because if you believe that your capacity, your ability can only be to hold power and never let it go in order to shape and change things, a Pinochet moment here in this country, you don't really, you're not really even, you've given up on conservatism too. And essentially, a lot of these people have given up on conservatism because they feel like the leaders of the Republican Party gave up on conservatism. And I would say that one of the worst things to happen to conservatism was the election of George W. Bush. And I don't mean that as a criticism of Bush. What happened when George W. Bush got elected is the conservative movement became a wholly owned subsidiary of the Republican Party. But you got to go back a little bit further than that. Because really, the worst thing to happen to conservatism was Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton wiped out the Democratic Party and the Democratic coalition that existed. Before Bill Clinton's defeats in 94, when the entire South rapidly went Republican, and a lot of the Midwest did too, and the West did. Before that, conservatives had to reach across the aisle, and they had to find a common tongue with Democrats who were conservative. The conservative Democrats were so wiped out by Bill Clinton and his behavior, conservatives no longer had to reach across the aisle. Conservatives could stay within the Republican Party and build coalitions and ideas within the Republican Party. And then along comes George Bush, and a lot of the conservative movement then becomes the Republican Party. And you really start to see the media using conservative and Republican interchangeably as if it means the same thing. You rarely ever see anyone use progressive and Democrat and mean the same thing. But you very frequently, even among conservatives, will hear conservative and Republican, and they've always been different. But because people internalize that conservative and Republican were the same thing, well, there are a lot of Republican leaders who aren't very conservative. Look at Asa Hutchinson in Arkansas. He vetoed a bill that would prohibit transgender surgeries for children. The Arkansas legislature overrode his veto, And he was on Fox News last night, had a very bizarre interview with Tucker Carlson. Hutchinson claims to be socially conservative, and yet when a corporation snaps its finger, he does their bidding, and corporations have moved to the left. Culture itself has moved to the left, and so there are a lot of people who feel like that things are slipping away from them, which is why you have this fight or flight response now by some conservatives. They've abandoned all hope. And that is the bottom line here, that conservative leaders, conservative intellectuals, and a lot of the grassroots element within the Republican Party, they have lost hope. And let's be blunt and honest here. Donald Trump did not give people hope. He gave them an outlet by which they could have their vengeance on the other side that they blamed for destroying the country. Donald Trump, what do they say? He fights. Whether he fought or not, he fights. And people went with Trump because of that. And frankly, that's why there's this element of Trump supporters now who like Josh Hawley so much, because Hawley's been very unapologetic about challenging the election. He refuses to be bullied. It's why so many now gravitate towards DeSantis. Forget the policy. He fights. And they want a fighter. They want someone to fight. What they need is someone who offers hope. Not hope that we can own the left, but hope for a better tomorrow. And some of these people have decided that owning the left gives us a better tomorrow, and that's not the case because it's not sustainable, because there are a lot of people in the middle who you require to vote for you, who their whole idea of hope for tomorrow is a better job. Their hope for tomorrow is that their children get ahead. And you got a lot of conservatives out there now, and their message is, we've conserved nothing. Even the Constitution doesn't work. We got to prepare for a fight. These people, they don't want to fight. They want to make ends meet. They want their kid to go to college. And you've got a winning issue right in front of you. The culture fight. Because so many of these conservative intellectuals have internalized that conservatism is conserved nothing and culture is lost. Look at what happened in the election. Forget your theory that the election was stolen. Just for a moment, please. And this is going to be hard for some of you, and I realize this, but for a moment, please, just please, for one moment, pretend, even if you don't agree with me, pretend that the election wasn't stolen. Just pretend. How then do you reconcile? How then do you reconcile that the Republicans gained state legislatures, held governor's mansions, and nearly took back the House of Representatives? If the election wasn't stolen, how do you reconcile that? You reconcile it by looking at what happened. If you assume it wasn't stolen, what you understand and can see from the data is that the American people, they kind of got tired of Donald Trump, but they didn't get tired of the policies. They got tired of waking up to see if he started World War III on Twitter. They didn't get tired of him fighting back against wokeism. They elected a bunch of Republicans and took back several state legislatures. They returned all the Republican governors. They held state legislatures they could have lost, like here in Georgia. And Donald Trump lost by slim margins, 40,000 votes nationwide in the Electoral College. Forget the millions of votes that Joe Biden got from places like California and New York. Look at the 40,000 votes that gave him the Electoral College win. He got slightly less votes than Donald Trump got 4 years ago in the Electoral College. If you reconcile all this together, what you see is that there's an America that is still conserving, cultural conservatism. There's an America that still believes in hard work. There's an America that still believes in going to church. There's an America that still believes that boys becoming girls is kind of nuts. And they're ripe for the taking because the left is trying to cancel them as well. The left is bullying them as well. What you have to do to get those people, though, is not be like Donald Trump. Take his policies, but not be the own the left, throw the punch. You've got to offer hope. Now, what is that hope? That hope is a profound certainty that your ideas are better than their ideas. And what we have right now is a profound certainty of doubt on the Republican side, a profound certainty that the country is lost. You can't really, hi, I'm Joe Blow, vote for me for president because we've conserved nothing and there's nothing left in this country worth saving and we need to burn it all down and start over again. Guess how many votes that guy's going to get? There's joy in the sunrise. And Republicans are painting a sunset picture. There's joy in the sunrise. And Republicans are painting a picture of decline. And they're not just painting a picture of decline, they're painting a picture of not only are we declining, but the way that we have to get back is we got to fight, and it may become a physical fight. The country's tearing itself apart. There are two Americas, and one of them, they're not really American. And you know what? The other side is saying to you that, well, you know, those guys, they're not really American anymore. They don't believe in the Constitution even. We believe in the Constitution. Now, you can argue with them. You can say they really don't, but that's their message. They're saying the same damn thing you're saying, except they're offering people a picture of a greater tomorrow, a more tolerant, more diverse, more open society, whether you believe them or not. I have a profound certainty in the American people, and I have proof. They rejected the defund the police people in 2020 when everyone said they wouldn't. They rejected the Democrats nationwide. The only Democrat they really backed was Joe Biden, who promised just to return to normalcy. And guess what? He lied to them, and now they know it. They see it. So if you just offer some hope, offer some optimism, offer some our best days are ahead of us rhetoric, and get beyond your Cold War vision of America, get beyond your 1980s zombie Reagan playbook and address the issues of the here and now. And this whole idea of, well, now we're the working class, we're the working class. No, you're not really. You're not really the party of the working class. In fact, a lot of the working class did vote Democrat. If you actually look at the actual data of who actually voted, there was some working class vote for Republicans, but by and large, you know who voted for the Republicans? The middle class, black, white, Asian, Hispanic, the middle class. It's the rich white people and the diehard union people who stayed with the Democrats. And now what do the Democrats want to do? They want to impose unionism on everyone. They want to raise your taxes. They want to get you out of your car. They want to keep your schools closed down. The Democrats have embraced a pessimistic governing vision that they're packing with ideas about hope for tolerance and diversity. What they really mean is Orwellian cancel culture. This is why the right should fight on these cultural moments. But they can do so with the hope in the American people. And right now they're not. They're just angry. I mean, they're pinning these essays at Claremont that we got to fight. It's over and done with. We're done. Even the Constitution doesn't work. We got to fight. No. Offer hope. And one of the things you do to offer hope is you laugh at the other side. Laugh at them. They're going to scowl. They've got the media on their side, but you can still do an in-run about them. You can still do an in-run around them. You don't need the mainstream media anymore, and Republicans still like, well, we lost the media. How can we ever win again? Because you don't need them. You got the American people on your side. How do I know? Because they overwhelmingly voted for you in November, even if they rejected Donald Trump. If you get out of the idea that it was stolen from him, you start to see these things and you realize the American people are not with the Boko Haram crowd. They're not with the defund the police crowd. They're not with the angry left. They're not with the academics and they're not with the media. They're with you. So just offer them something hopeful, not we got to stand and fight because the country's going to hell in a handbasket, the world's on fire, and everybody sold us out. Yeah, I want to be on that guy's side. No. Offer a hopeful vision for a better tomorrow where your kid can get ahead. And one of the ways you can do that, frankly, is you can take on the elite in this country, the Amazons and the like. You can take them on because people are turning on them. They're realizing that they've taken the vision of the American dream and they've walled it off from a whole class of people in this country who are entrepreneurial and ambitious. And they're telling them, no, you've got to stay on the social safety net. We're going to keep you comfortable, but don't you dare get off of it. There's a vision for a better tomorrow in conservatism if conservatives will just go back to it or find a new way to talk about it instead of just being angry about everything right now. Anger is not going to get you back into power. And believing and professing that the Constitution is broken, it's not going to get you there. In fact, it's going to give a lot of people reason to say you're not really a patriot if you believe that, and they're not going to vote for you.
News and in-depth analysis from Erick Erickson.
Well, Governor Brian Kemp of Georgia has become the latest to reject the idea of a vaccine passport. Ron DeSantis, Greg Abbott, I believe Doug Ducey in Arizona, now Brian Kemp, all coming forward and saying, nope, it is an invasion of privacy to require a vaccine passport. You have a right to travel in this country, and a vaccine passport violates that right to travel. Good on them. I got to spend a little bit of time on Asa Hutchinson, but to get there, wow, this Tucker Carlson interview with, I can't play you all of the interview. I had to go back and watch it because my mom was texting me last night, wondering what on earth has gotten into the governor of Arkansas. Now, the governor of Arkansas, you do need to understand, has always been beholden to Walmart. Walmart is the chief employer in the state of Arkansas. And when Arkansas is one of those few states, it's kind of funny. There are more blue states with Religious Freedom Restoration Acts than red states. They never thought they needed it. And now when Arkansas considered one a few years ago, Walmart stepped in and said, nope. And the result is that Governor Hutchinson made sure it couldn't pass. Let me just play you part of this is just Tucker Carlson.
Then why don't we allow 18-year-olds to drink beer in Arkansas? Why don't we allow them to get tattoos? Why don't we allow 15-year-olds to get married? You vetoed a bill that would have protected children, not adults, children, to whom a different standard applies, from a life-altering permanent procedure that has effects we can only guess at, but the early indication is they're very serious and very negative in some cases. And now you're telling me you do that because you're a friend of limited government? Okay, then why are we preventing kids from drinking? Sincere question. Or getting married? Sincere question. Having sex. They're not old enough to have sex, but they're old enough to be chemically castrated? How does that work exactly? I'll listen as you explain.
I'll listen to this. I mean, the governor of Arkansas he did a very bad. He did himself no favors by going on with Tucker Carlson. He should probably fire whoever thought it was a good idea for him to go on television with Tucker Carlson. And it was also a very dumb thing for him to do. Now, the Arkansas legislature has overridden his legislation. Senator Clark Tucker, Democrat of Little Rock, said he was concerned about the most powerful people bullying the most vulnerable. Senator Ted Rice, Republican of Waldron, Arkansas, moved for immediate consideration of a motion to override to protect children. The Arkansas legislature, in a vote of 25-8 in the Senate and 72-25 in the House, voted to override Governor Asa Hutchinson's veto of a bill to ban gender-affirming treatment for transgender youth. Now, let's deal with the newspeak for a moment. Have you noticed the Orwellian newspeak when it comes to transgender philosophy these days? If you want to send your kid to therapy to get them to embrace the way God made them, it's called conversion therapy, and it's bad. But if you want your child to change their gender, it's called gender affirming. Shouldn't it be the other way around? Conversion surgery and gender affirming therapy? No, not with the wokes. It's the exact opposite. And in Arkansas, now the legislature has overruled the governor and imposed a ban on gender dysphoria surgery. And they've done so to protect kids because there's a growing movement of insane parents who want to start giving their kids puberty blockers and other things before they're of the age of legal consent to keep them in some way, oftentimes because the parents impose their own biases and prejudices on the kids. The whole thing is very bizarre. We are in a very weird cultural moment, and the fact that Asa Hutchinson would side with the wokes on this tells you his career is kind of done. Now, he can't run again for office. Sarah Sanders is running, the former White House press secretary, daughter of former Governor Mike Huckabee of Arkansas. The whole thing is bizarre. The interview with Carlson was genuinely bizarre. So much I had to go back and watch it. My mom was texting me about it. Hutchinson, I don't know who's advising him, but he's way out of his league on this. Hello and welcome. It is Erick Erickson here. I am so glad to have you. I guess it's not out of place for me to say this for those of you listening in Athens. Starting next week, you're going to get all 3 hours of the program. They're going to be moving me noon to 3 in Athens as they move beyond Rush Limbaugh's show. Can I just spend a moment here with you guys? Because I still find the thing very weird and surreal. Change is coming to radio, obviously, and I'm trying to figure out my future in radio, and it gets frustrating. There are speed bumps along the way about where you go and how you do it, and who do you partner with. And I know there will be a station here or there that if I were somehow able to pull this show off as a noon to 3 show, which I'm already doing a local show in Atlanta, and my hope is somehow to be able to figure out how to make this all work together. But I got corporate masters involved there who they got to figure out their future as well. But I know if I did, there would be some stations that I would not be able to take because some of those stations have corporate owners and they have their own people they're putting in noon to 3. Then there are a lot of other stations out there already. Like half of my affiliates are already airing this program in delay, noon to 3, even though it's technically live 9 to noon. Next week, we're going to be picking up a station in Tyler, Texas, and they're going to be running at noon to 3. And so we're starting to grow the show. Now, that next week is kind of a trial run to see if I G-haw. See, I'm practicing G-haw with their listeners in Texas. We'll talk about the glories of brisket next week. But the future is uncertain. But if you weren't here in the last hour, I spent way more than I intended to on how I think conservatives have lost some hope. And that hope is profound certainty that their ideas are really good and work. And you hear all the time people who used to be diehard activists within the conservative movement say, we've conserved nothing. We've conserved nothing. We've actually conserved so much. We have expanded the Second Amendment in the face of a unified opposition on the left and in the media. You know what? Let me just talk about this for a moment. I hear conservatives lament, people who no longer define themselves as conservatives. They consider themselves part of the right. A lot of them are the post-Christian right. They've moved beyond the blending of their Christian values with conservatism. And they say that we've conserved nothing. Conservatism has conserved nothing. What a joke. We need to move on from conservatism. What exactly they want to move on to is some sort of America, yeehaw, nationalist, populist thing that still has a lot of the traits of conservatism, but they no longer want to call it conservatism. It reminds me of the left. No one wanted to talk about them as liberals anymore. They had to go back to calling themselves as progressives. They're rapidly moving back to having to call themselves liberals again because everybody hates the progressives. But you got this strain. It's almost all white men, by the way, who say that conservatism has conserved nothing. Actually, we've expanded the Second Amendment. Conservatives have. We've expanded the Second Amendment. We have protected and expanded the allowance of homeschooling in the country. We have expanded people's support for the right to life in this country. Overwhelmingly now, the majority of men and women in this country favor restrictions at abortion, even if they have not yet favored a ban at abortion. We have continued in this country to embrace states' rights thanks to conservatism. In fact, during the Trump years, it was the left taking the go-it-alone at the state level approach, embracing key elements of federalism that conservatives have long advocated for. We have continued as conservatives to embrace a robust national American military. Even if we don't always agree with the ways it goes, we certainly have. But conservatism does not actually mean no change. Conservatism means slow change, considerate change, consideration of the democracy of the dead. The way we do things are done because those who came before us through trial and error settled on this is the best way. And we may at some point decide not to. Now, that doesn't mean that conservatives have won every fight. But the whole idea that the country's now broken, that it's all hopeless, and we're going to need to stand and fight and rethink things and come up with some new ideas, or not necessarily new ideas, but new philosophies and embrace some sort of nationalist populist blending. The left-wing critique on this is that it leads to a level of fascism. It leads to a level of getting power, never giving it up. And you hear that from some of these people, and it kind of scares me that people on my own side start saying, well, we're never gonna leave once we get power again. We can't, because the other side's going to take it. And we say that they're so bad, we're going to behave exactly like we think they're going to, because we don't want them to get the power. It's a level of hopelessness in the belief in your own ideas. Part of that comes from people like Asa Hutchinson, the governor of Arkansas, clearly doesn't believe the ideas he espouses, and yet it's the conservatives who haven't grasped the discernment to be able to stand and fight. But the Arkansas legislature stood up to him. We're also in this era of identity politics and politics of personality, where we get rid of the guys who have the ideas and go for the people who scratch an itch for us. We want to punch back, so let's go with the fighter. We want to go with the brash personality. The critique from so many people on the right now is that, well, those who didn't support Donald Trump, ultimately, they didn't like his personality, and look what they did to us, and it's all their fault. And you don't want to actually understand and admit that they had any validity to their critique, because you yourself rejected it. You overcame it. Why can't these wimps overcome it? And yet, when you look nationally, Republicans are doing pretty well. Conservatives are doing pretty well. Maybe not in the media, maybe not in the institutions, but with the American people rejected outright the whole defund the police movement, people. The American people outright continue to reject the wokes. It's why, by the way, the left is so censorious when it comes to transgenderism, because your average American citizen realizes it literally is bat poop crazy that a boy can somehow become a girl. And the American people understand this, which is why the left has to shut everyone up. It's why they have to use big business. And there's no hope on the right now. There's no optimism on the right. There should be a lot of optimism, because the American people are still with us on a lot of these things. Have faith in the American people. That actually gets me into Amazon. That's right. Amazon.com. I'm extrapolating the culture war and moving over to Amazon.com. Amazon has decided through Jeff Bezos to come out in support of a higher corporate tax rate. And also, they've come out in support of a higher minimum wage. Amazon.com is fully bought into the idea of $15 an hour or higher, saying they already pay their employees that. Their employees, mind you, they've got to pee in bottles, but they pay them $15 an hour. They're perfectly happy to raise the corporate tax rate. What is going on here? This is, I think, an angle where conservatives have the opportunity to make a play for the American public with an optimistic, hopeful message. We now have in this country big businesses that are almost universally aligned with the wokes, Fortune 500 companies. They share the values of the wokes, and they align with the Democratic Party, and they're doing it out of self-interest. Amazon.com wants a $15 an hour minimum wage and wants higher corporate taxes because Amazon knows it can afford it and the little guy can't. Amazon's not doing this out of altruism. It's not doing this out of some level of patriotism. Amazon is doing this because Amazon understands that it can ruin its competitors if these policies go into place. Amazon can weather a 25 or 28% tax increase or to that tax rate. They can weather the $15 or $20 an hour minimum wage when mom and pop shops on Main Street can't. Walmart, you will recall, came out in favor of Obamacare, in large part because Walmart knew it could offset the burden of its health care to the government, and then mom and pop shops couldn't compete. What we're seeing in this country increasingly are big businesses aligning with the left for competitive interests. And what's brilliant here is that the Republican Party for so long has been seen as the party of big business and the Chamber of Commerce. And in fact, the Chamber of Commerce is much more at home now with the socialists than they are the free marketeers, Because if you allow a full and fair free market with a level playing field, Amazon can't compete as well. And there's always the chance that the little guy will eat their lunch. Now, part of the problem here within the grift of the conservative movement is the money that's being thrown around. So here's part of the problem. Take the Supreme Court decision this past week. Oracle versus Amazon, or Oracle versus Google. It wound up being in the Supreme Court, Google versus Oracle. A lot of the conservative movement was getting money from Oracle under the table to back Oracle and make all sorts of impassioned arguments about Google. Other conservatives were not getting money from Oracle, but also despise Google and want to hurt Google. And they knew if Oracle won this case, it would hurt Google badly. The case was over an API, which is an application programming interface, and how Google took 11,000 lines of Oracle's code and used it. And Oracle said that was a copyright violation. Google said it was fair use. Well, it wound up being 11,000 lines of a 2 million line code. I played in my last hour a clip from Tucker Carlson from Fox News. It was a 36.6 second clip. I could play that because there's a doctrine of fair use under copyright law. Google could take 11,000 lines out of 2.4 million lines of code because there's fair use. Google, the point from the Supreme Court was that Google wasn't actually taking the code and duplicating what Oracle already did with the code. They were taking the code and they were doing something new and different and bigger than what Oracle ever did. They made the Android operating system. They weren't taking the underlying essence of the code. They were taking essentially the code that shows how to display something, and then they were displaying different things with that code. Now, the issue may be complex for you. It's a technical issue, but you need to understand a couple of things. There are a number of conservative organizations taking money from Oracle to attack Google. There are other conservative individuals and organizations that were attacking Google because they see Google's for the menace that Google is. Google is a menace. Google believes, its employees believe, that its algorithm can be shaped to exclude people and be non-diverse. Those same people want to exclude conservatives. You can see where this goes, as those people who believe the algorithm can be used to exclude, use it to exclude conservative voices from web searches. There's a real danger and menace to Google, a progressive woke organization. I know a guy who worked at Google who got fired from Google because he became an open professing Christian and was talking about his faith at the office. That's the sort of company Google is. Google is a dangerous company. But to side with Oracle over Google would be to side with a company and a decision in the Supreme Court that would have locked in predatory monopolies that would prevent someone from ever being able to outcompete Google. Literally, if the Supreme Court had gone with Oracle, it would have hurt Google, but it would have hurt every other person on the planet who writes software. Because everyone who writes software takes snippets of useful code from those who came before and uses that code to develop something new. You would be locking people into proprietary standards no one could break into, but the conservatives never thought about that. They just wanted to attack Google. There are ways to attack Google. There are ways to attack Amazon. And conservatives, I think, need to overcome their reluctance to attack big companies and understand that where big companies are in this country right now, led by groups like Amazon, is they have gotten big and now they want to tilt the playing field in their favor so the creative destruction of the free market can never take place. If you believe in the creative destruction of the marketplace, you should applaud the Supreme Court's decision in Google versus Oracle. If you believe in the creative destruction of the marketplace, you should really oppose government protection schemes that raise the minimum wage, that raise the costs of labor, that raise the costs of doing business, that raise the regulatory concerns. You should be wanting to destroy a lot of the patent system in this country that is now being used by major corporations to prevent innovation. There are ways for the conservative movement to move forward in ways that are hopeful and optimistic for the little guy, for David to be able to slay Goliath. One of the biggest problems in the conservative movement right now is that there's so much money flowing under the table from corporate interests to steer corporations, to steer conservative Inc., as people derisively call it, in certain directions. And you got to have more honest brokers within the conservative movement. But more than that, you've got to be willing to stand up to the left and understand the media is going to hate you. They're going to savage you. Twitter is going to come for you. Social media companies are going to block you. But the American people are with you. Stop living in fear. So much of the conservative movement lives in fear right now. Fear not. You don't have to be a brain biblical donkey. You can be a nice guy, but you can still stand up for your values. And that's frankly what the conservative movement needs right now. We need people who stand up for principles and ideas and not just going to throw punches at the left. You can throw punches all day, but ultimately the American people are going to cast a vote. You need them to vote for you, and they're not going to vote for the people throwing punches. They rejected Donald Trump for it, and they rejected the wokes wanting to defund the police who are rioting in the streets. Maybe we should actually realize that pattern instead of continuing to believe fantasies about the election.
News and in-depth analysis from Erick Erickson.
Hello and welcome. It is Erick Erickson here. The phone number, if you would like to be a part of the program, 877-97-ERIC, 877-973-7425. Let's go to the phones. Tom, you're going to be up first. Welcome.
Hi, Eric. And I was pretty happy to hear what you were saying in the last segment, earlier, about fun, because I'm thinking of the 4F Club, and I think you remember, if if you don't even know it, which is faith, family, freedom, and fun, the right to pursue happiness. And we've got to, and the free exercise thereof.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So I'm thinking at every political gathering, it would be, in my mind, I'm seeing an opening prayer, some, elevation or demonstration of family, maybe have a little vignette or a little thing about something about freedom, some of the things, the hopeful things that you were saying about the First and Second Amendment, and then a parody song for fun. We've got Bernie Sanders' theme, which is, you all know I've been to Moscow because I kind of like the Kremlin. The ladies are insane there, but you'd have to ask the Clintons. So that's from the old Three Dog Night song. I've never been to Spain.
Right.
So there's a bunch of those that we can have lots of fun with at any political event. And
Tom, I'm glad you said that, because one of the things that I really do think is happening here is the conservative movement has lost its sense of humor. And we used to, if I had the budget to do it, and I don't, and I hope to get there, I would get Paul Shanklin, who for years did the parody songs for Rush Limbaugh, and start doing them here. The environmentalist songs. Can you imagine the fun you can have with the songs on the woke nonsense out there? I mean, there truly are some creative moments, and the left, it would drive the left insane, and we should be laughing at them, y'all. I mean, we're literally we've got a group of people out there who you cannot have a sense of humor with these people, because you could joke about something last week and this week it'll get you fired. It's like the 12 days of Christmas. I mean, the first day of Christmas, my true love brought to me a partridge in a pear tree. By the time you get to the piper's piping, the partridge has been canceled, and you're going to get canceled if you say it. I mean, these people, it is the logic of an insane asylum, and we should be willing to laugh at it. You've got a boy, suddenly you become a girl. Next week, you want to become a they. I mean, they want to put Caitlyn Jenner up now to run for governor of California. If they don't support Caitlyn Jenner, are they transgender or transphobes? Are they bigots? I mean, this is their logic. Hold them to their logic and laugh at it. People on the right are so angry about everything these days. There's really a lot to laugh about right now. There is a whole lot to laugh about. And we should, and people just don't want to. They want to yell and say, "Oh, the country, we haven't conserved anything. We haven't even conserved the Constitution. We got to have something new. We got to fight." People don't want to fight. They just want to go to work. They want to raise their kids in peace, and they're perfectly happy to join you in laughing at the idiots on the other side if you're just willing to laugh at them instead of screaming all the time. Hello there. It is Erick Erickson. So I gotta mention something. They're not an advertiser. They're not a sponsor. I'm endorsing them, but I'm not getting paid for it because I love them. I got a listener yesterday texted me and said, thanks for the RecTech lead. I bought a 590, RecTech 590. RecTech, for those of you who don't know, there are a bunch of pellet grills on the market. There's the Traeger, there's the Pit Boss. There are a couple others. I tried several. Now, my buddy Brant pushed me on the RecTech. He got a RecTech. And he pushed me hard. I had never heard of RecTech. Turns out that they're made here in Georgia. They're made in Augusta, Georgia. And so Pit Boss is a cheap pellet grill you can get at a lot of big box stores. I think you can get them at Lowe's and Home Depot. Don't go to Home Depot right now. We're mad at them. Lowe's. You can get them at Walmart, I think. You can get a Traeger pretty much anywhere as well. And Traeger is kind of the brand. The problem is that in the last several years, Traeger's been manufactured in China, and their build quality hasn't been great. And I used a Traeger, and one of the things I noticed is it doesn't get as hot or stay consistently hot as a RecTech. And the RecTech, also the parts are pressed in China, but they're manufactured here. They're put together here, and the entire computer system is domestic. So it's not from China, and it's got a better warranty. It holds up better. It's a good pellet grill. And they're also, so the thing about RecTech, in addition to being in Augusta, Georgia, they've got a cult following. But one of the coolest things is when you get a RecTech, I am not kidding. When you get a RecTech, you get the CEO's business card with his personal cell phone in it. And I have texted him in the middle of the night with a question, and he responded. And it's not just me. Everybody who buys a RecTech gets the CEO's cell phone number. And I love my RecTech. I genuinely, I've got a big green egg. I'm going to give my big green egg to a friend of mine. I got to clean it up for him. Just because at this point, I just want something where I can flip the switch and start it, without having to wait an hour for it to come up to temperature after dumping coal in and getting soot on me and stuff. The pellet grill is just easy. Now, full disclosure, the RecTech gets nice and hot. It gets over 500 degrees and holds it, unlike a Traeger. But I don't use my RecTech for grilling. I have a professional grill, and it's actually a professional quality grill that I spent way too much money on it, but it'll last me the rest of my life, and I love it. It's called a DCS by Fisher Paykel. They're a New Zealand company, and oh my goodness, this sucker gets up to 1500 degrees, and it's brilliant. Doesn't have a sear burner because every burner is a sear burner. It's awesome. I love it. So I use it for all my grilling. It's got a 50-pound rotisserie. It's got 2 burners on the side for I can do fish fries with. I'm thinking of getting a standalone deep fryer, one of those Gator ones from Louisiana. In any event, the only reason I'm thinking about this is someone just sent me a comment on Instagram and said, where can I get your rib recipe for your pellet grill? That reminds me of how awesome I love my RecTech, but also these comments I've been getting. If you want my recipes, I will send them out to you. What you can do is text the word recipe to 33777. You will get a link back. You have to, this is important. You've got to click the link and put in your email address. You got to do that if you want on the list. And I will send you a recipe. And you can also, if you go to ewerickson.com, you can find all my recipes because I like to cook because it's something more than just politics. And I can't, y'all, can we just admit we're tired of it? We're all tired of politics these days. Got to find something else. I got bourbon, beer, and barbecue. That tends to be my passions these days. And going to CrossFit because I'm fat. But anyway, let's go to the phone, shall we? Jim in Decatur, you're going to be next. Welcome.
Well, thanks, Eric. Yeah, this is a great topic. I have never understood how conservatives just are always in a snit at the slightest deviation. We have forgotten. You have to go back to Ronald Reagan in 1980. He began a string of intermittent victories. Before Reagan, people laughed at the idea of tax cuts. That really was considered a joke. Now it's a very vibrant part of our political DNA and cultural DNA. That is a huge turnaround. That is a great victory to get this many Americans to understand that that can be good. We've had some notable military victories, some of them without having to go to major wars, either any kind of even go to war. You could just go on and on. But let us have a little slippage. We held off Hillary Care. We stunted Obamacare. And we haven't exactly come up with a pretty workable alternative. But, you don't win. You don't win every battle. You don't get everything right. And, we actually should have been – we were supposed to have lost all kinds of seats in the House, possibly in the Senate. Well, we did goof up the Senate. Well,
barely, but yes.
House, a bunch of them.
Yeah.
It was almost a 30-seat turnaround from what we were expecting.
So,
here we are just throwing fits.
We are, and it frustrates me that this level of it's what I call it increasingly is the post-Christian right, that we've got to behave just like the other side. We can have no grace. We need to be just as nasty as them. We're convinced that they want to hold on to power and never let it go, so we're going to hold on to power and never let it go. My view is like God in what Isaiah says, my ways are not your ways. I think that we as people on the right need to say our ways aren't your ways. We need to offer an optimistic vision of the future. And right now we're just saying, the Constitution's broken, everything's screwed up. We're going to have to fight. Most Americans don't actually want to fight, at least with each other. They're perfectly willing to go defend the country, but they don't want to fight with their next door neighbor. Their next door neighbor, Bob, they don't like him because he's a tech fan instead of UGA. But otherwise they get along just fine. And this level of anger is just out of proportion right now.
Amen, brother. We are not, generally speaking, those of us in the talk show world, in the political world and all that, forget that Americans generally aren't political people.
Right.
They aren't political animals. I used to think it was kind of bad. Then I studied the Civil War and said, ooh.
Right. Well,
no, that's not such a good thing.
This is one of the other things here is that I do think that a lot of conservatives have moved into a bubble as much as people on the left, and they and all of their friends talk politics just like people on the left do, and so they're convinced everyone else is as political as them when the average American really isn't political. They're worried about their work, they're worried about their home life, they're worried about their kids. And now you've got both sides, frankly, on the left and the right, say, but you've got to care about it. And they don't want to care about it. They want to go watch a football game and not have politics in their face, which is why ratings are down. And that's a compelling message right there for the right now. Jim, listen, thank you very much for that. And to that point, if conservatives would take the message, you shouldn't have to care about what happens in Washington. You shouldn't have to have politics in your face. I think that's a message for the American people that I don't have to care about this stuff right now. But man, so much on the right now is so whipped into a frenzy about all of that stuff. And there's this thing here. I'm seeing this trend in the media where the media can't understand why are conservatives fixated on Dr. Seuss. Why are conservatives they're fighting over cancel culture? What about the infrastructure bill? The reality is what the media misses and what the left misses is that the culture stuff actually plays well for the GOP. The culture war stuff plays well for Republicans right now. Because look again at November, and this is something that the left is missing. They're fixated over the January 6th stuff. They're fixated over the Trump people thinking that the race was stolen, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What they're missing is something very simple. A lot of Americans don't like the in-your-face, my way or the highway pressure tactics of the left. A lot of Americans don't feel privileged to be white or to have come from a two-parent household. They don't feel privileged to be a Christian. They don't feel privileged to be heterosexual or cisgendered, as the left would say. They don't even know what the hell cisgendered is or why they should care about it. And yeah, the left tells you, you must care. You must care. They don't want to care about that either. And you know, I wrote a book several years ago called You Will Be Made to Care on how the left essentially forces us to take a side. And I think there are a lot of Americans who, if they're forced to care about these issues, they're going to care in ways the left doesn't like. But they don't want to come to a conservative movement that says, oh, well, screw this. All is lost. We've conserved nothing. Even the Constitution sucks. And that's the message they're getting from so many of the most vocal people on the right. These days, we're going to have to embrace fascism because the left is going to embrace communism. And so we're going to have to embrace. I think that's where this is headed. And I don't endorse the proposition. And I don't think that corporate America or the left really understands, the Democrats per se, the president of the United States, like understand that when the left becomes that culturally dominant, that they can wipe you out over a 10-year-old tweet and you're a nobody, but they can ruin your life. People get pissed off. And the right should be offering a compelling counter program to that. And they're not. They're like, well, we're going to cancel people we don't like. We're going to be just like the left, except we're going to go after that. I don't think that works. I don't. There's hope and optimism out there, folks. There is hope and optimism. And the conservative movement, the right, needs to sell that hope and that optimism. The conservative movement needs to sell laughing at the left. You know, okay, let me pull up. I want to pull up a song real quick to give you an idea of this. Let me reroute my speaker here. I'm doing this spur of the moment. I was mentioning, you know, Rush Limbaugh was famous with Paul Shanklin parodies. For so long, Rush would play these things. And if I had the budget, I would do that. But I don't need a budget for this because I want to play you this song. This song is from an artist called Noshi. And Noshi put out an album, Environmental Songs, about going green. And this is a song that this group actually wants teachers to play in school. I don't need Yugo Rush Limbaugh global warming parody when I have this that I can play on the radio.
It sure is hot outside.
Hey, where did all the snow go?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
It's getting warmer. It's getting warmer. Every year the summer's warmer. What am I to do? I go outside and play a game, but it's too hot for that too.
This is an actual song that they won in schools. It's getting warmer. We're all gonna die. Kids, eat your parents because they're carbon emitters. We're all gonna die. Don't have kids. Kill them if you do because we're all gonna die, the little mouth breathers. I mean, there was a story yesterday in the Atlantic about the two things that we could do to save the planet. Number one, eat your leftovers. Stop throwing food away. Number two, stop eating cows, tasty beef. No, eat pork, eat shrimp, eat other things. Don't eat beef because cows pollute. And so much of the planet must be used to grow the food, to raise the cows, to give people hamburgers. I'm thinking this is the left's message. We're going to ban hamburgers. And that we on the right can't laugh at that. What if the cow decides that the cow identifies as a donkey? Are you going to get rid of it? If you get to identify as a girl, why doesn't the cow get to identify as a different species? And then you can do nothing. They become a protected class. You can't laugh at that. Of course you should be able to laugh at that stuff. I don't need a parody song about global warming because I got that, and that is actually not intended to be a parody. That's intended to be a real song to scare your kids in school as the teachers try to indoctrinate them. It's getting warmer, kids. It's too hot to play outside. It's global warming because the adults screwed you. Except Not in that way, because we're not in that state. But nonetheless, you know what I mean. It's ridiculousness. We should be able to laugh at these people because these people, ultimately, they're idiots.
Honest news and conservative views.
Hello, welcome. It is Erick Erickson here. Let's talk about the Gates way to hell, shall we? The Matt Gaetz story. You know, I've always said Matt Gaetz, and multiple people told me it's pronounced Gates. The Gates way to hell. I had someone call yesterday who said that we should have Matt Gaetz's back because Matt Gaetz is a conservative and it's the rhinos who are attacking Matt Gaetz and they're out to destroy him because they know he's an active and passionate supporter and good messenger for President Trump. And we all need to have Matt Gaetz's back. First, I do want to say, in the interest of fairness, and so you know where I am coming from, I'm not a Matt Gaetz fan. I actually don't think he's a good messenger for the president. I think he's a self-promoter and oftentimes overshadowed the president's message with his own self-promotion. I know enough people who know Matt Gaetz to believe that there's got to be some truth to some of the salaciousness in the stories, that he's not the nice guy he comes across on TV. This plays into one of my pet peeves about where we are as a culture right now, where if you see someone on television who tells you the things you already believe, you decide that person's a good person when really they may not be a good person behind the scenes. I mean, I remember when the stories about a certain TV personality came out, and the number of people who were shocked that this guy could behave like that around people behind the scenes, because I see him on TV every day, and he seems like such a nice guy, and I agree with everything he says, and Nope, turns out he was a real biblical donkey behind the scenes to a lot of people, including harassing a bunch of women and doing terrible things. But you didn't see that on TV, so you decided you like him. It reminds me, so I've got a friend of mine who is a very famous person, celebrity, in movies, on TV. We don't talk about our friendship in large part because the wokes would certainly come for him. And I am shocked. Well, I'm not really shocked, but he laments this all the time. The number of people who treat him as if he is one of his famous characters, who was iconic, and that's not really him. It's not really him. And it reminds you people connect to a character on television. Listen, I don't say this to flatter myself, but I am the exact same person off air that I am on air. I mean, anyone who works with me could attest to that fact. I'm not trying to play a character on radio or on TV. I'm just me. And so many people are trying to play a character, and you get attached to the character, and really the person's a jerk. And Matt Gaetz, I don't know if he's playing a character or not, but I know plenty of people who know him behind the scenes and say he's just not, he's not the good Christian choir boy that you may think he is on TV, and a lot of the stuff rings true for them. But the bottom line is this: forget what I say and forget what I think about Matt Gaetz. I'm not a fan. Forget anything I say about him. Notice who's not saying anything about him. Where's Donald Trump? Where's Donald Trump Jr.? Where's Eric Trump? Where's Ivanka Trump? Where is Kellyanne Conway? Where's Mike Pence? Where's Mark Meadows? Stephen Miller? Jason Miller? Where is the president's team? Where are the close advisors to Donald Trump? Notice they're not defending him. Notice they're not speaking up. I mean, when oftentimes President Trump's supporters are embattled, he's one of the first people to rush in and defend them. He and his supporters and his core staff and advisors and his kids, they come to the rescue. They're not coming to the rescue for Matt Gaetz right now. They've kept noticeably silent. That should tell you everything you need to know about this situation. Whether the press has the story exactly right or not, that the president's team has kept their mouth shut and won't defend him says a lot to me. Sometimes, what is it with Sherlock Holmes? It's the dog that didn't bark. That's the most telling thing, the dog that didn't bark, and the fact that the president's team, they're not barking in defense of Matt Gaetz is something I think all of us who are questioning what the heck is going on should be paying attention to in this situation. Now, we got to switch gears when we come back. We got to talk about the left's continued obsession with Donald Trump. There's more today. Hello and welcome. It is Erick Erickson here, the Erick Erickson Show, coast to coast. The phone number is 877-97-ERIC, 877-973-7425. Glad to have you with me this hour. We must begin with the ongoing media obsession with Donald Trump. We had a situation at the end of the Trump administration when Donald Trump was banned from social media outlets that the media said, good riddance. Good riddance. We don't ever want to cover this guy again. We don't want to utter his name. He will be Voldemort, whose name shall never be mentioned. He who must not be named. And then the ratings came out. And the ratings suck. Poor old CNN has lost about half their audience. Fox News is back to number one. MSNBC doesn't know what to do without Donald Trump. The New York Times, the Washington Post, subscribers are down, readership is down. What do we do? What do we do? Well, they begin to drop Donald Trump's name in everything they possibly can. Every week now, all of the media outlets who were certain they would never ever talk about Donald Trump again are dropping stories that put Trump in the headlines. I mean, take, for example, this CNN analysis, which was one of the dumbest things ever. So CNN has this guy, Stephen Collison. And every morning, Stephen Collison has an analysis piece, which is actually an opinion piece. And his opinions make Chris Cillizza look like a PhD, if you know who Chris Cillizza is. Collison is, I guess he's a British dude who writes about American politics. And he was the obsessive CNN guy. Every morning during the Trump administration would have just about the dumbest, most unhinged piece about Donald Trump you could read. And now he's back at it. And every time he writes, he's got to write about Donald Trump. He can't do anything else because it's how he made his living. Here's the headline. GOP's Trump obsession is giving Biden an opening. That's right. He says it's the Republicans who are obsessed with Donald Trump. Donald Trump has left the White House, but the Republican Party just can't quit his stunt politics. As President Joe Biden sells a popular COVID-19 rescue plan, highlights a quickening national vaccine efforts, positions himself to benefit from an economic growth spurt after the pandemic, and tackles economic inequity in American society, the GOP seems to be acting out the temperament of the last president. At times, the party seems trapped into a perpetual primary race, shaping positions that seem best suited as fodder for the culture warriors at Fox News. The party has spent the first months of the Biden administration rewriting election laws to suppress minority votes, denying the truth of Trump's Capitol insurrection, raging against vaccine passports, and trashing science with state openings that threaten to cause unnecessary pandemic deaths. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell unleashed a fearsome attack on woke corporations that reacted to a discriminatory voting law in Georgia. McConnell, at least in his rhetoric, sounded a lot like the former president. Businesses must not use economic blackmail to spread disinformation and push bad ideas that citizens reject at the ballot box, the Kentucky Republican said. In fact, what Georgia voters rejected at the ballot box, causing the GOP to change the laws, was a second term for Trump and 2 Republican senators. And on it goes, down to Trump still ruling the GOP by making a pilgrimage to Mar-a-Lago soon after Trump left the White House. House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy sent a signal he believed keeping the Make America Great Again fans on his side was a passport to power. You might as well put this at some left, well, I guess it is CNN. CNN.com is one of the most left-leaning news outlets. Even like the folks who rank news outlets separate CNN.com from CNN, noting CNN.com is further to the left than the trash you see on the air regularly these days from some of the woke reporters, the Don Lemons and Chris Cuomo's of the world. So you've got them. obsessed with Donald Trump, claiming, well, it's not us who's obsessed, it's the Republicans who are obsessed. And we have to cover the Republican obsession with Donald Trump. Did you hear me say Trump? And now you got Politico. Here, this is an actual front page story at the Politico. This is the actual headline. What a photo of Trump's new office reveals about how he wants to be remembered. And this is the actual subtitle. An obsessive, inch by inch Politico breakdown of the 45th president's new digs at Mar-a-Lago. They got this picture of his office, and they've got things circled. I kid you not. This is the circling. Wooden box, desk, black Sharpie, newspaper, chair, iPhone and reading glasses, Coca-Cola, plaque commemorating the border wall, mug, rack of challenge coins, statue of Trump, Air Force One picture, Mount Rushmore picture, lamp, family photos. This is the Politico. Their obsession with Donald Trump. I'm kind of flabbergasted by this. Let me see if I can get the Politico reporter to actually talk to us for just a minute here. This would be very important, I think, if we can get the Politico reporter here who did the detailed breakdown of the president and his office to even go so far as to highlight circles on the desk, to note that there's a desk and a chair and a lamp. Can we get him, please?
No. The other thing. Love.
Yeah. What is that?
Well, stuff to explain.
I think I was in love once.
Really? What was her name?
I don't remember.
That's not a good start, but keep going.
She was Brazilian. Or Chinese or something weird. I met her in the bathroom of a Kmart, and we made out for hours. Then we parted ways, never to see each other again.
I'm pretty sure that's not love.
Damn it.
I love carpet. I love desk.
Brick, are you just looking at things in the office and saying that you love them?
I love lamp.
Do you really love the lamp, or are you just saying it because you saw it?
I love lamp. I love lamp.
Brick, now writing at the Politico. Brick loves lamp. Brick loves desk. Brick loves wooden box. Brick loves newspaper. Brick loves chair. Brick loves mug. Brick loves family photos. Brick loves lamp. He loves lamp. This is the actual Politico story. Americans got a glimpse of Donald Trump's post-presidential office for the first time on Monday when former White House aide Stephen Miller tweeted out a picture of himself with Trump. The photo comes out as Trump tries to remain the kingmaker of the Republican Party and has been meeting politicians down at Mar-a-Lago seeking his endorsement or hosting fundraisers at the resort. The office is above the ballroom at the exclusive Palm Beach Club, according to someone who's been in it. The image showing a smiling Trump and Miller with Palm Beach trees in the background outside rocketed around social media with amateur online sleuths analyzing everything from the collection of tchotchkes populating the room to the bottle behind Trump's phone. Politico decided to do its own deep dive into Trump's office with the help of 4 former White House officials. With the help of here's our best reported effort to figure out which mementos the 45th president chose to keep around him in his new Florida life and what it says about how he views his legacy. We used to call this crap criminology. 4 former White House officials have been involved in analyzing a photo that shows his desk with highlights, including a lamp and a desk and a wooden box. The former White House official said the lamps are likely Mar-a-Lago lamps based on the decor of the result. This is the hard-hitting journalism of the post-Trump presidency. These people need Donald Trump. They need Trump. Their ratings suck without him. They've got to have him. And now they've hired Brick to tell us that he loves lamp and desk and carpet. God help the American Press Corps.
Want to be on the show? Call Eric now.
I like lamp and desk. Just these people, they are obsessed They're obsessed. All right, to the phones we go. Greg in Marietta, Georgia, you're next. Welcome.
Hey, Eric.
Hi there. High speed, the better.
12-year-old, you've obviously seen that meme.
Yeah, yep.
I like trains. You got to look it up. I'm a glass half full guy, but I got a lot of conservative friends. And last week with Major League Baseball, it feels like a tidal wave has washed over us. It's obvious the Fortune 100 are in bed with the Biden administration and the media. What's the strategy for conservatives to make it the next 21 months till hopefully we take back the House?
Listen, there are a couple of things that I think that conservatives and Republicans have to do. One of which is I think conservatives and the Republicans have to get over their reluctance to attack the Chamber of Commerce, because the Chamber of Commerce is culturally on the left and has been for a while. They've been opposed to religious freedom laws. They're opposed to traditional values. And I think that conservatives need to start going after the Fortune 100. And they can do so in a way that blends conservatism and populism beautifully. And it's a way that I think connects with Black and Hispanic voters and not just white voters, that these guys want to make it so David can never slay Goliath. These guys are perfectly happy with being on the cultural left and lying to the American people so long as they get benefits. You can make a great case that Amazon and the big box stores are killing small businesses around the country. But more than that, I do think that we have the opportunity to bring back the happy warriorism that I think has been lost to some degree on the right. We can laugh at these people and their absurdities. We can laugh at them and their scowling over, frankly, transgenderism is one of the big issues. Dead naming, the way that Elliot Page always was, according to Time Magazine. There is some humor to be had in this, and I do think that the majority of the American public are with us on these things. Like, for example, the reason that the left is so fixated on water and food at polls is because they cannot talk about the voter ID element, which was the most substantive change in Georgia's voting laws. They can't talk about it because they oppose it, and yet even a majority of Black residents support it. I do think there's something to be had here in the level of hypocrisy with Major League Baseball. I think that Marco Rubio is probably right. It's time to come after Major League Baseball's antitrust exemptions under federal law. There are things the right can do, but more importantly, we control a majority of states. We control a majority of state legislatures. We control a majority of governor's mansions. We can redistrict, which we're going to do. But also at the state level, I think you can see conservative policy be implemented. For example, Georgia, Florida, Texas, Arizona, they've all come out now against vaccine passports. I think they can certainly do that. They can certainly pass laws that prohibit private businesses from denying access to their stores from people who don't have a vaccine passport. They can do stuff like that to push back on the Fortune 100. And the Fortune 100, frankly, I think is ripe for piggyback on. I like business. The business of America is business. But when business goes all in with the wokes, conservatives do have to push back. Frankly, I think if conservatives want to have one major level of impact, pick one business, and it better not be Delta. Because I'm not giving up Delta because it's the only airline worth flying out of Atlanta. Pick, I don't know, Coca-Cola, Home Depot, Disney, something, and just every conservative group in America, working with every church in America that is inclined to support them, say, just for the next month, don't shop here. Don't shop here. And here's why. This company, whatever company it is, they're beholden to China. Disney is a great example. Disney's beholden to China. Disney loves China. Disney's making money off of China. Let's pick a month and say we're not going to do business. Plan your vacations around it. Don't go to Disney World during this month. Don't cancel your Disney Plus subscription for the month. Do all of this stuff and just turn it off for a month and show that conservatives have economic clout. Now, I don't know that a lot of conservatives want to do something like that. I don't know that they want to give these things up. But what they can certainly do is they can start going after tax breaks. And, I think tax breaks are probably an easy way for conservatives to go. First of all, stop giving tax breaks to companies to lure them to your state away from another state. Second, stop giving tax breaks to domestic corporations. Get rid of Delta's fuel tax credit. Get rid of their fuel tax exemption. Get rid of all of the tax exemptions you give to companies like Disney. Get rid of the antitrust exemption for baseball. Do all of these things and make these corporations understand that if they're siding with the left, there are going to be consequences. That the left doesn't want them to have this stuff anyway, and now we're going to give it up. I think there's a winning message there for the GOP. Above all else, though, I got to say this. There's a level of dread on the right now. And I just don't think it's healthy to be whipped into constant fear about the other side or to be yelling and angry. And there's this interpretation on the right that the anger that Donald Trump harnessed was a winning thing. But actually, I would argue that Donald Trump won in 2016 because he was running against Hillary Clinton and people hated her more. And the Republicans at the federal level have not done well with that level of anger. Whatever happened to the happy warriors? It just seems to me that we got a lot of people out there who should be and can be happy warriors. And right now they're not being happy warriors. Right now they're not out there laughing about the wokes. There's so much about Woko Haram to laugh about. I mean, these are people who really think that if you're a dude and you get up today and you say, hey, my name is now Mary and I'm going to go play softball instead of baseball, that's normal. I think there's something to laugh at. I think there's something to laugh at about the wokes and their language revisions. There's something to laugh at in intersectionality. The idea that Neil Armstrong's views on landing on the moon are less valid than the non-Neil Armstrong who passionately believes that it is its truth, not his or hers, but its truth, or I'm sorry, they's truth, their truth, that we didn't land on the moon, that we got to prioritize this person. There's a lot to laugh at out there with these people. And I think we need to. There's no reason to be perpetually spun up in anger, because there are a lot of Americans, and again, I've talked about this entire day. Maybe this is the theme of the program today. There are a lot of people who just don't care about this stuff. They just want to work. They just want to go to work. They want to have their family. They want to go to Little League. And so you laugh at them. You laugh at the wokes with them. You turn the wokes into the butt of jokes. Then I think they're with us. I mean, they want a happy warrior. And the conservative movement right now doesn't have a lot of happy warriors. We got a lot of ambitious politicians who want to play act, and we get the sense they don't really mean it. Say what you will about Donald Trump, but you knew he believed what he said, whether you liked him or not. A lot of people gravitated to him just because he was authentic. We need that level of authenticity, not the backstabbing, ambitious politicians. Hello and welcome. It is Erick Erickson here. Delighted to have you with me. The phone number, should you like to be on this here program, is 877-97-ERIC, 877-973-7425. I have been telling you guys this week about Eden Pure. They're our newest advertiser, and I can definitively tell you, yes, you need Eden Pure. What is it? It is an air purifier. Odors are a big thing when you're cooking. In fact, we've got the Eden Pure Thunderstorm. I had to buy one because my kid, they sent one to review and my son stole it. Well, I should say he grabbed it and won't give it back. He put it in his room, and he definitely is not waking up in the morning with clogged up nose. So it definitely helps the allergy thing. But my wife is doing the healthy eating stuff, and she cooked fish the other night. And, you know, she's big into the vaporizers and the essential oils, and she had that in. Well, I snagged the Eden Pure and put it in the kitchen, and I can tell you it gets rid of the fish odor. It does. It gets rid of the bad odors. This product, it is as good as advertised, and you can get it for a great price. If you go to EdenPureDeals.com, you get $10 off the lowest sale price. The Eden Pure Thunderstorm Air Purifier. Use Eric at checkout as your code word at checkout, ERICK. Remember, it's ERICK. If you go to EdenPureDeals.com, you'll see my name on the front page. You can click it and go through that way. But this thing, it is the size of it. You can hold it in your hand. You can use a USB plug, so it's portable. You can take it with you. You can use it in your car. If you got someone who if you're me, when I went to visit my parents and had a rental car, someone had smoked in the car and it stunk to high heaven, the Eden Pure would take care of that. It takes care of the fishy odors in the kitchen. And my kid sleeps through the night now without waking up in the middle of the night coughing with a snoggy nose from his allergies. Eden Pure really works. It's a great product. EdenPureDeals.com. For where I am, I don't know where you are. Where I am, it is allergy season. I see blue sky and yellow outside from all the pollen. And the Eden Pure is perfect for that. If you got allergies, you got stinky house, EdenPureDeals.com. Remember, use the word Eric, ERICK at checkout. You'll get $10 off their lowest sale price. All right. I got to spend some time on the story. It's kind of funny. A buddy of mine texted me this and said, this is something you should talk about on air. I had it in my stack of stuff to talk about. I got a push alert yesterday about this law, and I was intrigued. The Today Show actually has a story on this. Biological fathers in Utah are now legally required to help pay for half the medical costs associated with pregnancy and delivery. The bill, signed by Spencer Cox, the Republican governor, only applies to those whose paternity is verified. While speaking with the Salt Lake Tribune, State Senator Dan McKay, a Republican, described the bill as an effort to try and bring some equity to the funding of pregnancies. But the new bill might not be just about helping moms. Republican State Representative Brady Brammer hopes to see the abortion rate drop in Utah as a result of prenatal child care. Naturally, Planned Parenthood goes straight to, hey guys, it's cheaper to kill the kid. Rip it limb from limb and we can sell the body parts. Well, they didn't quite say it that way, but you know what they mean. Listen to this. This is from the Today Show, this paragraph. This is amazing. The Associated Press reported the average cost of raising a child is $233,610. The figure does not include the cost of college, but the cost of an abortion is only $1,000 if a woman does have health insurance, according to Planned Parenthood. Wow. I mean, you can tell the ghouls writing this story. Yes, it's a way to advertise killing the kid is cheaper than letting the kid live. While we appreciate that this bill highlights how expensive it is to be pregnant and that many women struggle to cover the cost of their health care, we feel there are better ways to support pregnant people and families. Carrie Galloway, president and CEO of Child Killers Incorporated of Utah, Planned Parenthood of Utah, told Today parents in a statement, expanded Medicaid, better health insurance coverage, equitable access to reproductive health care, code word for kill it, and paid family leave are just a few ways policymakers could do much more. People who become pregnant should be able to determine for themselves what is best for them without legislative interference compromising their privacy or bureaucratic hurdles. Oh, and of course, the YWCA chimed in. It provides services to domestic violence survivors and has concerns. Domestic abuse can get worse during pregnancy, and seeking these costs could further increase stressors about financially supporting a baby. Well, you don't have to do it. But is it not good that we do? Now, here's the thing. Let's just look at Child Killers Incorporated, also known as Planned Parenthood. They don't believe that a man should have any ability to interfere in whether or not a woman butchers the baby. And I'm not hiding behind the abortion euphemism. We all know what it is. You rip the head off a child, crack open its skull, suck on its brains, and tear it limb from limb if they're developed yet. Otherwise, you scrape it out of the womb. Let's not pretend that it's some just standard medical procedure. You are literally ripping a human being limb from limb. And Planned Parenthood, Child Killers Incorporated, does not believe that the man should have any say-so whatsoever in whether or not the woman should be able to kill the child. But if the woman decides not to, the man better pony up or he's going to jail. Frankly, I think that should be a law as well. That if the man cannot, now, of course, the pro-lifers, I get it. I understand where we would head with this. But if the man can have no say-so on whether or not to kill the kid, why should the man have any say-so on whether or not to pay for the kid? I mean, it seems fair is fair. There's a paternal issue there. I don't actually, let me be clear here. Don't advocate that, because you would have a bunch of men saying, hey, kill the kid. I don't want to pay for it. We should be supporting a culture of life. What's so funny here, though, is the reaction from the death cult. Utah passes a piece of legislation that says that the biological father has to cover half the costs. And Death Incorporated, its response is, well, yeah, but it's cheaper to just murder the child. It's only $1,000 to rip up the kid and let us sell the parts on the black market. They don't even sell it on the black market. They sell it on I guess, the gray market. Death Incorporated is perfectly happy to cover the cheap cost of killing and butchering the child because, it's really expensive to raise one of those suckers, and they emit carbon dioxide. They're bad for the planet. You could be saving. Can you imagine the Death Incorporated Planned Parenthood statement? They could come out, run an ad campaign. Want to help the environment? Murder your child. That's basically the response to this piece of legislation. And by the way, this shows when it comes to raising kids and covering the cost of kids, you're never going to find compromise with the people who want to butcher children. You're never actually going to find compromise with the people who hide behind the euphemism of abortion to talk about ripping a child limb from limb, cracking open its skull, vacuum cleaning out its brain, and then selling it for parts. You're not. Because they want to make the economic argument that it is cheaper to murder a child legally than it is to raise a child. So maybe moms, instead of getting dad to cover half the cost, just come on in, spread your legs, and we'll kill it for you. I think that the Utah legislature should be praised for dealing with a difficult issue and requiring that it takes two to have a child, and they both have obligations to that child. We live in a society these days that devalues children. I mean, hell, you got half the left thinks if your 3-year-old puts on boys' clothes and your 3-year-old's actually a girl, well, then let's start them on puberty blockers tomorrow so that they can grow up as a boy. Because clearly the kid's transgender. Little Billy picked up the Barbie doll. He's using the legs as a show. My wife had a Barbie when she was little. She used the Barbie until its legs fell off as a shovel outside playing with the boys. In this day and age, thank goodness she had normal, sane parents. If she had some hippy-dippy, loopy leftist parent, they'd she's using the Barbie as a shovel. She must actually be a boy. we should be able to laugh about the insanity of this stuff instead of just getting mad at it. I mean, the fact that Planned Parenthood's reaction to a bill that requires that biological fathers actually cover half the cost of a child, their reaction is kill it instead. It's cheaper. This is the world we live in. The wokes are nuts. We should point it out. I really, y'all, I did not wake up this morning or go to bed last night and think I'm going to have theme day on the radio where every story is going to be woven together into a theme about the happy warriors of the right versus the wokes. But my goodness, it sure does work out that way today. I mean, every single one of these stories, you got angry leftists and you got the people on the right like, oh my gosh, we're all going to die. The world's come to an end. There's nothing. We've conserved nothing. Like, how can you not look at these people and laugh? How can you not look at these people and realize they're kind of nuts? I mean, how can you not look at Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and realize this woman, she's kind of crazy. And for all the people on the left say, well, the right, you're just obsessed with her. No, y'all actually look up to this woman and follow her on Instagram and parrot everything she says. My goodness, she called these things at the border concentration camps, and you had a guy who died trying to firebomb an ICE facility because she said so. We're not obsessed with her. We're pointing out she's nuts.
And now, Deep Thoughts by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
They want to say, what about the surge? Well, first of all, just gut check, stop. Anyone who is using the term surge around you consciously is trying to invoke a militaristic frame. And that's a problem because this is not a surge. These children, they are not insurgents. We are not being invaded, which, by the way, is a white supremacist idea, philosophy. The idea that if another is coming in the population, that this is like an invasion of who we are.
That was Deep Thoughts by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
He doesn't just have a radio show. Erick
Man, 60 Minutes cannot just take the loss and move on, can they? 60 Minutes is doubling down again. They've released a longer statement about their, as Oliver Darcy at CNN says, much criticized story on Florida's vaccine rollout. It's not much criticized. They got it wrong. CBS first said that all they did is they edited Ron DeSantis' statement to their reporter at length. They didn't do that. They took two separate statements from Ron DeSantis from two separate questions and merged them together and didn't disclose that. And now they've got a new statement. When Florida state data revealed people of color were vaccinated at a much lower rate than their wealthier neighbors, 60 Minutes reported the facts surrounding the vaccine's rollout, which is controlled by the governor. We requested and conducted interviews with dozens of sources and authorities involved. We requested an interview with Governor Ron DeSantis. He declined. We spoke to State Emergency Management Director Jared Moskowitz twice, but he declined to be interviewed on camera for our story until well after our deadline. The idea we ignored their perspective is untrue. Counter to his statement yesterday, we also spoke on the record with Palm Beach County Mayor David Kerner. For over 50 years, the facts reported by 60 Minutes have often stirred debate and prompted strong reaction. Our story Sunday night speaks for itself. That's their statement. Well, Jared Moskowitz, the Democrat in charge of emergency management, is now on Twitter saying, I did speak with 60 Minutes, never said I didn't. They were very nice, but I told them the public story was bull blankety blank. Walked them through the whole process. The fact that I didn't sit down on camera because I'm in the middle of responding to a 100-year emergency doesn't change the truth. Wow. 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 He is a Democrat. The mayor of Palm Beach County is also coming out and attacking CBS, saying they willfully misrepresented it. In fact, they didn't edit Ron DeSantis. Again, they took two separate statements from Ron DeSantis and they merged them together. Even Ben Smith, now the media columnist for the New York Times, is calling them out, tweeting, broadcast TV remains worse than anyone else at just admitting when they screwed up. 60 Minutes completely screwed up. When you have Democrats in Florida who don't even like Ron DeSantis coming out and defending Ron DeSantis, that tells you pretty much everything you need to know. Meanwhile, in Georgia, Governor Brian Kemp is continuing to go out and campaign on his election reform package that he signed into law. And the president, by the way, Joe Biden, is, well, he's walking back. Remember, Biden was totally down with Major League Baseball boycotting Georgia. It's now blown up in the Democrats' faces. They've chosen lily white Colorado, where the people of Denver are whiter than the snow-topped mountains. By the way, I gotta dispel some disinformation from the right, though. Colorado does not have more restrictive voting laws than Georgia. And I know there are people saying that. It's not really true. Colorado has more restrictive voter registration requirements than Georgia, but it doesn't have more restrictive voting laws than Georgia. Colorado has a shorter time for in-person voting than Georgia, but Colorado uses universal mail-in balloting, which is less restrictive than Georgia. It's more complicated than either side wants to admit. Both sides want to be dogmatic about it, but that's the truth. Colorado, by using universal mail-in balloting, is not as restrictive as Georgia overall, but when it actually comes to voter registration, it is more restrictive. Well, now Joe Biden is asked about the Masters, whether they should get out of Augusta. Here's what he said.
I think the Masters golf tournament should be moved out of Georgia.
I think that's up to the Masters. Look, it is reassuring to see that for-profit operations and businesses are speaking up about how these new Jim Crow laws are just antithetical to who we are. There's another side to it, too. The other side to it, too, is when they, in fact, move out of Georgia, the people who need the help the most, people who are making hourly wages, sometimes get hurt the most. I think it's a very tough decision for a corporation to make or a group to make. But I respect them when they make that judgment, and I support whatever judgment they make. But it's the best way to deal with this is for Georgia and other states to smarten up. Stop it. Stop it.
Here's Governor Brian Kemp making the rounds on Fox News.
They folded like a wet dish rag to the cancel culture. I mean, it is woke in real life, and Americans and Georgians should be scared. I mean, what event are they going to come after next? You know, what value that you have, the way that you live your life, are they coming after next? Are they going to come after your small business next? Because that's who's getting screwed here, Maria. It's the small business people that would have profited from the All-Star game, being at Truist Park at the home of the Atlanta Braves. And now they're moving to Colorado. They have 2 days less of early voting than we do. They have a voter ID. You know, President Biden's been talking about how bad voter ID is. He did the pregame for the NCAA championship the other night that was all held in Indiana. That's the birthplace of photo ID. That's where the first lawsuit was upheld that says it's okay to have a voter ID. Most Americans and most Georgians support this. This is so hypocritical. And to your question, it's amazing that CEOs that have government affairs teams that knew what was in this bill, that were fine with it, they didn't even bother to check with them because they got pressured from the woke.
From the woke. Woko haram. A little more of the governor.
Yeah, I think they will. I mean, it's almost comical, just all of these hits that keep falling, moving the All-Star game from a city that's, or a metro area that's 51% African-American to a metro area that's 10% African-American that has less early voting days than Georgia has. They have 15. We have 17. They have a photo ID requirement for in-person voting as we do the voter ID here. I mean, it's insane. I mean, you compare where Major League Baseball is headquartered in New York. And I've talked to that issue to nauseam, really, about the discrepancies in how they're boycotting and pulling games out of a state like ours, yet they're headquartered in a state that's more restricted than we are. I mean, it just doesn't add up. And I will tell you, the people here and all over the country have figured this out. They are outraged and they are sick and tired of the cancel culture.
They are sick and tired of cancel culture. And I got to tell you, I think in Georgia, Brian Kemp probably is going to win re-election on this against Abrams. Abrams realizes she overplayed her hand to run out. Now, even Raphael Warnock, who refused to take a position on boycotts, run out, was, whoa, guys, you shouldn't have boycotted. You're hurting the Democrats. They were the ones calling for it originally. And this is going to blow up in their faces now. And they're going to get what they deserve, which is Brian Kemp 4 more years in Atlanta as governor.